Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Nice to see people coming in, new friends and old friends. In some cases, old family friends. Nice to see people. Welcome to tonight's program, The Four Keys of Kabbalah with Rabbi Yisrael Rice. My name is Jason Harris. I'm the director of the Toby Center for Jewish Peoplehood here at the Marin JCC. We are a place for people of all ages, beliefs, and interests to explore Jewish values and traditions and to examine our world through a Jewish lens. So we're excited to have you all participating with us tonight. We are recording this evening and we will have that available as soon as we can get it up on our website so you can relive the highlights. Usually takes a few days for us to do that. And I do have everybody on mute this evening so that we can hear from the rabbi. But if you do have a comment or a question, please type it in the chat box. I'll be watching that and can alert the rabbi along the way if there's a particular point or question. So with that, I'm very pleased to welcome Rabbi Rice tonight. He has been a longtime leader in our community and a close partner with the JCC. Rabbi Rice is the spiritual leader of Chabad of Marin, where he has been a warm and wise resource for our community for the past 33 years. He is also the chairman of the editorial board for the Rohr Jewish Learning Institute, and he's the author of several courses, including Soul Quest, Life, Afterlife, and Beyond, the Kabbalah of Now, and the Messiah Mystery, which all sound very cool to me. Rabbi Rice lectures around North America, but he and his wife Gila live right here in Lucas Valley, I believe. He'll correct me if I was wrong on any of that. But otherwise, take it away and tell us everything.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Jason, and the Marin JCC. I very much appreciate this opportunity to join together with all of these wonderful people, all of these beautiful faces, many that I know, many that I will hopefully come to know through this evening and in the future. But this is really a great opportunity for me, and thank you for letting me share a little bit about my new book called The Four Keys of Kabbalah. Here's the fresh off the press. The Four Keys of Kabbalah, a spiritual guide to finding meaning and purpose in your life. So as I noticed from the screens here, many of you maybe have started reading it already. But in any case, it's always good to come together and learn a little bit of Torah. Jason is sharing a link at the end of the talk after the question and answer. You can order the book online and I will actually sign it right here, and you will either be able to pick it up in Lucas Valley or I'm happy to mail it to you. So those options will be available, but you'll want to click on the link and order a copy beforehand. Then I'll actually sign it to you right on the screen right here in real time, as close as we're going to get to a book signing. So a mother and baby camel are talking one day when the baby camel asks, "Mom, why do we have these huge three-toed feet?" The mother says, "Well, when we're walking on the sand, we can walk firmly on these feet and these large toes so that we don't sink into the sand." A few minutes later, says, "Mom, why do we have these large eyelashes?" "Good question, son. Well, there are very big sandstorms and these eyelashes protect our eyes from the sand going into them, so we're able to continue to see." A few minutes later, Mom, she can't get any rest, the poor mother camel. "Why do we have these huge humps on our back?" So the mother responds, "As we travel through the desert, we are able to hold large quantities of water and we can stay hydrated. So we need these large humps." The mother feels that she's satisfied all of her son's questions when finally she nudges his mom, and says, "But mother, what are we doing in the San Diego Zoo?" So this is This is a very pertinent story because many of us in our own life, at a certain time, we're like that child, like that baby camel, and we discern that we have certain abilities. Maybe we have something about us, there's something deeper, more profound to our purpose, and something that's not satisfied by everything that the world is around us is telling us. And we're looking for that deeper meaning and that deeper purpose. And we're wondering, what are we doing in the San Diego Zoo? Why are we here? So to answer that question, I've put together this book. That's what the Four Keys of Kabbalah is about. So to understand really why are we here, we're going to start off as the name of the book would suggest. There are four keys, and I'm going to go through the four keys this evening. So the first key is really looking at all of existence. What is behind everything that we see, everything that we know? I read recently an interesting theory by a physicist out of Princeton. Well, it's not too recent. It was maybe a decade ago. He's passed away since. John Wheeler. And he has a theory that's called it by bit. And he says that in our technological era, if we have learned anything, it is that more important than matter, more important than energy is information. And so he theorized that behind every it that exists, there is one byte of information. There has to be something that tells that entity, that smallest entity, largest entity, whatever the organism is, or whether it be something small, something, or a galaxy, there has to be something, some information inside of it that's telling it what it is and how it is meant to interact with everything around it. And he referred to this as it by bit. And as I read that, I said, that's very interesting, because this is what the Kabbalah explains about existence. In Judaism, Jewish people are notorious for having a hard time with God. We have this very interesting relationship with God. It's if somebody says, Rabbi, I'm an atheist. Where are you from? I'm from Brooklyn. And you know that person is probably a Jewish person. That's that's code. Someone who's from Brooklyn and an atheist, that's basically Jewish. Most of the times. There's the story of we're not going to tell. We'll tell more stories later. But it's hard to understand really when we're talking about God. What are we really referring to? And I think so frequently people start to understand God from the wrong perspective. And the reason for that is they read the Torah. You read the Bible. You start from the story of the beginning. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and you have this whole story and all of the Bible stories. And it's hard to grasp who is this God? What is this God? Kabbalah explains to us that all of existence was brought about through the divine word. And God spoke these words, so to speak, and this was the story of creation. When we're reading the story of creation, it's actually a code. It's a code of the letters, the characters that convey the divine energy to bring all of existence about, to create space, to create time, and to create the entire universe and everything within it. Something pretty amazing, pretty awesome. And if we think nowadays, we have a good analogy where each and every one of us are looking at a screen, and we think we're looking at faces. Well, we're looking at faces. That's the user interface. But really behind all of this is what? Is a code. It's a string of characters telling every pixel where it needs to be, how it needs to interact with everything else. So it's all a code. It's the computer code that creates the reality of the computer screen, of everything that we see. And the truth of the computer is not the screen. It's really what's happening in the CPU, the central processing unit, whatever that is. So the actual computer. So when we look at reality, all of reality is inside, behind all of reality. There is a divine infinite light that brings everything about at every single moment. Another analogy through which we could understand this is looking at a painting. If you look at Starry Night, where is Van Gogh's creativity expressed in this painting? And everything, right? The whole thing, every brush stroke contains the artist's creativity. And so Van Gogh's creativity is found in every single element of that painting. If you suck out his creativity, what do you end up with? It goes back to what he started with. It's a pile of paint and an empty canvas. And so Kabbalah explains that all of existence is really the expression of the infinite creativity of the Creator. And every single moment, God is bringing everything into existence from the non-existence that preceded it. And so every subatomic particle, every galaxy, every human being has within it this truth of God, of the divine, what I call the infinite light. Now, this is key number one. I'll read to you. Kabbalah key number one. All that exists has a divine spark within it, an aspect of the infinite within the finite. So if it doesn't have that spark, it simply it cannot exist. This is a Kabbalistic idea. It's from the Kabbalistic writings from the Arizal, Rabbi Isaac Luria, and then explained further by Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi. So imagine if we could see this infinite light. Imagine if we looked at the world around us and what we saw was unbridled, infinite light, infinite love. So, Phyllis, when you wake up in the morning, you'd automatically feel your soul. You'd feel, wow, I feel this divine infinite light within me. And Karen, when you look at another person, another human being, what would you see? You would see the amazing truth of who that individual is. At every event, every situation that you encounter, what would you realize? You'd be aware that there's something amazing going on here. Imagine such a supercharged life. I'm going to read to you a couple paragraphs from my book where I talk about this. So picture a world of clarity and truth. A world without confusion, turmoil, crisis, or pain. Imagine a world where every person has direct personal experience of the first Kabbalah key. Close your eyes and imagine. Imagine what this world would be like. A world where we are aware of the infinite light in all of creation, including, of course, within ourselves. What could possibly be better than that? This, by the way, this is, I think, one of the issues that people oftentimes have in relating to God is simply, what kind of a crummy world did God create? I mean, it doesn't take much creativity to think of creating a much better world. I mean, what kind of a crummy world did he create? Okay, sushi, that's good. We'll give him a pass on that. But, you know, there's so many things going wrong. I mean, today seems more than ever. So what could be better than a world where we would see the infinite light in all? Indeed, it sounds like a fantastic existence. But as wonderful as it sounds, this world would be missing three essential components. All it would be missing is meaning, value, and purpose. We would each be part of this glorious, elevated reality. But what would our function be? How would we contribute? Where would our value be seen? So let me share with you, to get to Kabbalah key number 2, let me share with you, and so far, is everybody clear so far on this concept? It's a little bit of a heady idea, but it's basically that all of existence is the divine light that comes through the divine letters. And these divine letters are actually evident in everything. So if you were a high-level Kabbalist, you would be able to look at the world and see these divine letters. Maybe a little bit like Neo in, what was the name of that movie? The Matrix, that's right. Seems like the writers of that movie maybe sat in a Kabbalah class. So a question from Jim Brown. If God is the meaning, the light behind existence, whoops. Okay, so it's a good question. I'm going to answer, Jim, I'm going to answer your questions very briefly. This is reality, period, for all human beings, and all human beings can come to realize this, okay? And there's an element of Kabbalah, I think, that all people could possibly appreciate. I think the Jewish people in particular, it'll become clearer as we go on, the Jewish people in particular have this function, not necessarily that we want it, that we chose it, but we have a task to do, to be a light unto the nation. How do I know it's true that we are meant to be a light unto the nation? Because Barack Obama said it in one of his Rosh Hashanah speeches. He said it very clearly, that we are a light unto the nations. So the Kabbalah is one of the ways that we are able to get that light, understand it, and share it. That doesn't mean that nobody else can study it, okay? But this reality is not a reality for the Jews. No, this is not a parochial view. This is a view of the entire universe, right? And that would include the pale blue dot, which is how Carl Sagan refers to the planet Earth when you look at it from far away. So everything is included in this reality. All that exists is included. Every Muslim, every Christian, every atheist, and I will, to make it very, very clear, that means every evil individual, the worst individual that you can think of, could only exist because they had this divine energy inside of them, which is, and in truth, let's not talk about them, let's talk about our own life. We have that divine light inside of us, and so when we do something that's contrary, that's why the Torah utilizes the expression of being a desecration. Why is it a desecration? Because we are meant to be this divine light, but more about that later. So the question that I left off with was, imagine a world, right? Why couldn't, this is one of the big questions, why couldn't God figure this out? Just make a world where we can all see the truth, where we can all see this infinite light. We could all love each other without any limitations whatsoever. Would that be so bad, right? Such a world without having any self-doubt, without people having to go through all the mishigas and all the craziness that we ourselves have to go through without even looking at another person, just in our own head. So to understand the answer to this question, I will share with you the story, the tale of two teachers. Teacher number one explains everything in the greatest detail. Whatever you need to know, this teacher lays it out beforehand. They explain it to you. They have diagrams. They have a PowerPoint. They have everything explained, analogies, right? Models, however everybody is meant However, everybody is meant to learn using all of the modalities, the pedagogic modalities this teacher is utilizing to explain the idea as clearly as possible. And every student who studies from this teacher gets the idea. They get it. They're tested on it. They know it. They pass. They have it 100%. Now we're going to go to another type of a teacher. This teacher bends over backwards to make sure to not divulge the main point. This teacher will teach everything around it, build the bridges to it, but this teacher will not tell you the main idea. Why not? What is this teacher looking for? Why would this teacher teach everything and not teach the main point? Anybody? I'm going to try to be that teacher for a moment. I'm not going to tell you the main point. The teacher will lead you up to it, but will not tell it. And the teacher has to be very careful not to spill the beans, so to speak. What is this teacher trying to be difficult?
People aren't able to unmute themselves, but you can type in the chat if you have an answer.
Okay, why don't you write it on a card and all right, you can write it on a card and put it to your screen. All right. So I can read your mind. Diane, I can read, you're telling me, right? So the student can discover it on their own. Was that what you were thinking? I knew it. Exactly, right? The teacher conceals not to be difficult, not to withhold, but to give the student the greatest gift possible, the gift of discovery. That when they study it and they get it, they found it on their own. And when you find it on your own, that makes a qualitative difference between the information. So you have the information from teacher number one and you have the information from teacher number two. The difference between them, in a word, is ownership. The students from teacher number one do not own that material. They know it. They have it, but they don't own it. Teacher number two, since they had to find it on their own, they discovered it, they have ownership. And what I argue is that ownership is the only way to get to meaning, purpose, and value. Without ownership, you can't get there. If it's given to you, by definition, it cannot be meaningful. It has to be through your own effort, through your own journey, through your own challenges, and then you get it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a lot more akin to our life, wouldn't you say? The journey through all of the things that we have to deal with, internally, externally, experience, right? Life experience. Well put, Diane. And I see there was another question there. Let me see if I'm able to field it quickly. Yes, the student has an investment and investment with compounded interest because they own it, because it's theirs, right? This is really the idea. So Kabbalah key number one is that there is a spark of divine light in all that exists. Kabbalah key number two is that every particle of divine light is concealed. It's hidden. It's hidden through what the Kabbalists refer to as klipa. Klipa is a shell. A shell around the fruit protects the fruit, but it also hides the fruit. The klipa is a negative field force that covers over every aspect of God that exists so that we cannot see it, so that it is not apparent. And that concealment, ladies and gentlemen, is glorious. It's wondrous. Because that concealment is what makes possible what? You thought it. Bob, you're thinking it, right? Discovery. Only through concealment can you discover. The very first Jewish person, what was his name? Let's see if we have any on this on the screen here. It's close. We have no Abrahams. Well, Abraham was the very first Jewish person. And I want to tell you something very interesting about Abraham that you may not have known. Now, he was the very first human being to discover God. In other words, Noah didn't discover God. Noah knew about God, right? God spoke to Noah. You heard the record, right? From that comedian. We're not allowed to say his name anymore. So God spoke to Noah. Not only that, Noah had a grandfather, Methuselah, that taught him about the existence of God. So according to the story in the Torah, again, whether one believes that all of this happened or not, is the point over here is what is the message that we get from this? Is that all of the people, all of the men and women who may have had amazing experiences of the divine, they didn't find God. They didn't discover God. Abraham, the Medrash tells us, was brought up by idolaters. His father actually, now we know where Jewish people got it from, he manufactured idols, right? That's the Jewish sensibility, right? Okay, everyone's serving idols, let's manufacture them. But Terach, Abraham's father, did not believe in God. So Abraham grew up in a polytheistic family, in an idolatrous society, in a country of people that did not know God. Abraham went on his own to discover God. And we realize that discover is actually to discover, right? Discover is to discover. So was God playing hard to get? Well, in a sense, yes. But according to the story, what God was really doing was giving Abraham an opportunity to find him. A cosmic game of hide and seek. You see, because the purpose of Judaism is not to worship God. The whole purpose of existence, according to the Kabbalah, is not to commune with God, but it is rather to discover God in our daily life. This, according to Kabbalah, this is our purpose. This is our mission. If our main purpose was to commune with God, God should have created a world that makes it a lot easier. But if our purpose is to find God, well, this is exactly the world in which we live. This is it. So Kabbalah key number 1 is that everything that exists has within it a divine spark, an aspect of the infinite. Kabbalah key number 2 is that this divine spark is concealed, that keeps us from perceiving it. Why is it concealed? For us to fulfill our purpose. Kabbalah key number 3. The divine spark is concealed to enable us to discover it. And through us discovering it, we have ownership, thus partnership. That's Kabbalah key number 4, is that through this ownership, we have meaning, purpose, and value. And so according to the Kabbalah, the whole point of Judaism is really finding the hidden divine in ourself, in another human, and in the world around us. And every single, shall we say, mitzvah, every practice, every Jewish practice is meant as a mining tool to help us find the divine. This is, and this is what I go through in the Four Keys of Kabbalah. I then explain how these 4 keys are going to express themselves and say, waking up in the morning. So when you wake up in the morning, have you ever had the thought, of going back to sleep? No, it's never happened to you? I guess I must be unusual. Okay, it's happened to me at least twice today, just twice today. So here's the thing. Kabbalah explains that this is actually taken from the Talmud, that when we sleep, our soul, or shall we say our consciousness, rises, part of it rises above to heaven to get recharged. And when we wake up in the morning, our consciousness returns to us. Well, this is true, right? Everyone agrees with that. When we're sleeping, we're not conscious. And then when we wake up, we are now conscious. There's not much that you have that's more valuable than being conscious. According to the Kabbalistic understanding, that's our soul, our neshama. That is a part of this infinite that is put within us so that we can transcend ourselves and we can help the world transcend and bring a higher level of appreciation, a deeper, more profound awareness of us, of others, of humanity, of everything, of food, of time, of space. So now we wake up in the morning and you get really what you receive when you wake up is the most precious thing that you're going to get the entire day. In other words, what I'm saying here is that there's nothing that's going to happen to you today that's better than the fact that you woke up. Who agrees with that? Right? I mean, what, you're going to get a raise? You're going to win the lottery? You're going to, whatever it is, nothing is better than waking up. That begins our relationship with all of existence. So there's nothing better, yet the way that God made us, it's not a manufacturer error. God created us in such a way that when we wake up in the morning, we want to go back to sleep. There's so many reasons to go back to sleep. Well, you're in your bed, you have your pillow right there, and your alarm has a snooze button, right? All very compelling reasons to go back to sleep. Does Judaism give us a way to deal with this? Yes. It's called the spousal water bucket. No, I'm just kidding. That's not a thing. Judaism offers us this most amazing prayer, which is that when we wake up in the morning, we say, I am thankful that you have given me back my soul. And we pronounce these words, we actually say this out loud. Moda ani lefanecha melech chai v'kayam, shehechazarta bi nishmati b'chemla rabba emunatecha. That's the whole prayer. So if you say it real slow, it's about 15 seconds. A very short prayer, but what it does is it reminds us when I wake up in the morning, hey, I've just been given back my soul. This is glorious. This is a glorious moment. You might still be tired. You didn't have your coffee yet. So maybe you might not be exuberant, but certainly you're able to get up. You're able to wake with gratitude. And studies have shown that how you wake up in the morning has an impact on your entire day. So imagine if you wake up in the morning and you realize this most precious gift, right? So I go through that in the Four Keys of Kabbalah. We have a chapter on the Moda Ani, and we talk about how to deal with other people, how to deal with difficult people, and really, again, utilizing the Four Keys of Kabbalah and realizing that I'm dealing with another part of God. And when you aim to find that, that is what you're going to find. Also, the idea of realizing that any situation that you're in is actually, there is a certain divine synchronicity to every situation. Oftentimes we become upset because something happens. In the olden days, before PC, right, pre-COVID, we used to get stuck in traffic. Or now you're stuck at home, right? So we're always stuck somewhere. We're stuck in traffic, stuck at home, right? To breathe and realize that this situation is divinely orchestrated. It has the divine energy right in this moment. And when I realize that, I can get out of being stuck and realize the gift and fulfill my function and my purpose in this particular moment. This is really an opportunity for joyous living and realizing that we have this opportunity so many times during the day of really having a joyous opportunity of living life. And as Diane said earlier, let me go and look, what did she say? Being in relationship with all existence. There we go. And having that opportunity really in everything that we do. I'm just going to throw in quickly one more quick idea, and that is, you may have heard the idea of reciting a blessing over food. It's called in Hebrew a bracha. So you're blessing the food, and most people think that a bracha is thanking God. Thanks God, thanks for, I forget how that little ditty went, but thanks for the grub, basically, right? And of course, expressing your gratitude for the food is a fine thing, but Kabbalah actually explains that inside of this food that we are eating is a divine spark. And the blessing brings us into mindfulness of the divine present within that which we are eating. And when you do that, you're able to elevate the food, and the food is able to elevate you. Have you ever eaten food and had the experience that this food elevated you? It's a hard thing. It's a tough thing, oftentimes because we're not the ones consuming the food. The food is actually consuming us. We get all consumed by the food. The bracha allows you to consume the food instead of vice versa. When we recite this blessing, we come to a state of mindfulness and awareness of the divine infinite within this food. And then you can eat it gesund, you could eat it to your health, to your physical health, and to your spiritual health. So these are just a few of the components. The book goes through many other different ways that we see in Judaism and through the Shabbat and through the holidays. But I'm going to take a break here, and if anybody has any other questions that they'd like to ask, I'm happy to try to address them to the best of my ability.
Yeah, so if you have a question, there's a couple things you can do. One is to just type it into the chat and we'll see it. Alternatively, if you've got access to the little hand raise button, you can do that and we can scooch over to your raised hand and try to unmute you. And you can find the hand raise down at the bottom of the screen where it says reactions. And if you click on reactions, you'll see there's like a little button that says raise hand. Well, while people are coming up with questions, I have one, if that's
absolutely.
Well, I have several, but the one that kind of struck me when you were talking about discovery and the story about the teacher and leading students and just from a practical standpoint, because we're all very busy and we all have these very busy daily lives, and practically how do we make time for this, and where do we go? I guess where do we go depends on what it is that we're looking to discover, but on a practical level, how do we do this?
How do we start?
How do we start? That's even better. Thank you. Yes.
What You said I'm supposed to, this is where I'm supposed to sell my book? Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. That was not a prearranged setup.
Telling me here, they're telling me you got to sell the book, sell the book. So number one, you don't have to buy the book, okay? You can actually read some of it online, but if you buy the book, you're going to get a good guide into what to do, because the book doesn't just talk about theory. It talks about practicum. How do I bring this into practice? And what we've been speaking about here, the Moda'ani, for instance, that's a very good place to start. You know, learning about that, and maybe even putting a printout by your bed, or just, if you're like the other 7 billion people on the planet, you have your phone next to your bed. So you just type in Moda'ani, you just have it there, right? It's very easy to get and to do. You wake up in the morning and you just make the commitment. You wake up and you, that little prayer, the Moda'ani, that's one thing that one can do. I mean, there's so many other things, and everybody's going to be at a different level of observance and what they can do to kind of step it up a little bit. But whatever it is that you're doing, to be aware of the magnificent opportunity that we have doing this. And I'll tell you, sometimes I do a mitzvah, and I do a lot of mitzvot, it's what I do for a living, but and sometimes I'm able to exult in my fortune to be able to do the mitzvah. Sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm really not in the mood, but I still can realize how magnificent this is. Gila, close your ears for a moment. Thank you. It's my wife, Gila. You can be in a relationship, and there can be times that you're in that relationship where, wow, this is amazing. This is so great. There are times when you're not going to necessarily realize how great it is, but you can still be aware of how magnificent it is. Do you get what I'm saying? Don't wait to be inspired by it. Do it and realize how great an opportunity this is.
Excellent. Thank you. And we have a question from David Ernst, a really wonderful question. To please speak about the fear of dying.
The fear of dying. Okay. So number one, it's funny you should ask. I'm actually starting a course on Wednesday called, can you see it here? The Journey of the Soul. And the first lesson is free if you want to come and participate. I'm addressing exactly that question. That's exactly the first question that comes up in lesson 1, is talking about the fear of dying. But I'll address it here since it was asked. Two things. Number one, the Talmud talks about the fear of dying, and realizing our mortality is a very good thing. And hopefully it'll prompt us to do something positive today. If anybody here procrastinates, that's a very normal thing to do. And if one has the, shall we say, the fear of death, then you might say, you know what, maybe I should do that today. And we can actually use that instead of crawling under our covers in fear. We can instead use that fear to move us. But it could be, I'm not answering your question. I want to talk about something that the course will go into much more, and that is Judaism's belief is not that we are a body that has a soul, but rather a human being is a soul that has a body. Now, in our physical life, that's hard to relate to, and that's part of our work. That's part of the work that we do. Meditation, prayer, positive acts, and coming to realize that there's a soul inside of us, and that soul didn't start with our body, and it's not going to end after the body perishes. Kabbalistically, the soul, as I mentioned earlier, is a part of God. It's a part of the infinite if you want to call, if one has a fear of God, you can refer to it as the infinite universe. The infinite energy of the universe is inside of us as a soul. And when the body decomposes, the soul continues on. The soul continues on. And so imagine that you have this soul that comes down into the body, lives its life, does what we're meant to do. The body, in the body, of course, the great thing about the body is that this is when we can fill our purpose and our mission. And when we die, the soul comes out the other end. This is the Jewish belief. And although we don't talk about it all that much, because the importance is what we do today and how we live our life now, but the Talmud is replete with the idea of the eternity of the soul. So, Mr. Ernst, did I answer your question a little bit, a lot, not at all?
Other questions? You can raise your hand, you can type it into the chat box. How do you make sense in light of all this? And you spoke about this a little bit sort of tangentially, but I mean, how do you make sense of this past year? I mean, in any way we want to talk about it, the global pandemic and political upheaval and economic collapse and all the daily steady stream of bad news. Not that there hasn't also been some good news. How do you approach this?
Certainly, it's been a year of chaos, a year of confusion, a year that's, that the rug has been pulled out from under us, right? I would say that personally, two very important things. Number one, whenever I find myself in a state of confusion or can't figure out what's going on, the first thing that, or being upset about what's happening, we get down about what's happening, about our lot. This is a very normal human thing to happen. We get so upset with what's happening. It is crucial for us to focus on our blessings, each and every one of us. Imagine if you were able to experience the blessing of every breath of air. Instead of taking it for granted, like there are many people who are suffering, especially today, who are having a very difficult time breathing. Imagine if you were able to take every breath and have gratitude for that. Focus on that. And hopefully, maybe you have more blessings than that. Maybe you don't just have air, but maybe you have water. Maybe you have food. Maybe you have shelter. Maybe you're lucky enough to have a relationship. Maybe you have parents. Maybe you have children. Maybe you have a pet. Right? So look at your blessings and realize the blessings of what you do have. So that's a very important step number one. Step number two is do something. If you find yourself confounded by what is, do something for another person. Go out there and find another person who needs something, and you will find a way to connect. You will find a way to help. Maybe what they need is a pat on the back. Well, we can't do that today. Maybe they need a phone call. Maybe they need food. I know almost everybody needs appreciation. Send them an email. Say, I've been thinking about you. How are you doing? Do something for another person. This is very therapeutic. And if you don't feel better, you know what you do? Do it again. Until you feel better. Is that just a technique? Am I just trying to manipulate people to do good things? I'll let you be the judge. No,
Rather
but
great answer.
when you focus, because then you realize your purpose. But part of our problems come when we're not seeing our focus and our purpose. If you're realizing your purpose and that you have a mission right now, you don't have the time or the energy to become bogged down in depression and sadness and, you know, lethargy. You have a job to do. You got to go. And I think all of us can find this in our life. When we know we have got to go do something for somebody, we get up and we go and do it. We want to do something for ourselves. Maybe we're not so fast to do it.
Wonderful. Other questions, thoughts, comments? You can raise your hand. You can type it in the chat.
Ah, that's a great idea. Diane says to turn off all media for a day. Yeah, we call that day Shabbat, by the way. We turn off all the electronics, right? And we're set. We have really a day of rest. It's amazing. If you want to purchase the books, you can go to the website is right over here, KabbalahKeys.com. And when you pay for it, I'm going to see it on my link here. And or if you tell me that you bought it, of course, I will trust that you bought it. And I will sign a book for you right here. I'm going to hook up my book signing gear. So here you have the, let's see if that's showing up here.
I posted the link in the chat so you can click on the link and see the book right there.
I've got my, yeah. And if you want to get it for somebody, makes a beautiful gift. If you want to give to your, you know, to a friend or relative, you're welcome to do that.
Great. All right. Well, if there's no additional comments or questions, we still got a couple here. Oh, here comes one. Is there a distinction between a good deed and a mitzvah?
That's a good question.
In 2 minutes or less.
Okay, in 2 minutes. Okay. Technically, the word mitzvah comes from the Hebrew word tzav, which means a command. It's an instruction. It's something that God says in the Torah, do it. Okay? So if God says in the Torah, keep kosher or put a mezuzah on your door or something else, we wouldn't necessarily call that a good deed, right? But it's still a mitzvah. So good deeds are usually going to be a mitzvah, but a mitzvah is not necessarily the way people would understand a good deed. Although we kind of use them a little bit interchangeably.
And here's one that this is a fortunate one.
See that? Yeah.
Take it.
Just love him. Just love him and hold him close. And that's all you can do is show your empathy. That's very unfortunate. And don't, you know, although there's a whole philosophy of why bad things happen to good people and all of this, you know, life is not a philosophy course. Love your son and hold him close and cry with him. That's what you do.
Yeah, the question for people I can't see that my son's Bashert just passed away unexpectedly. He is completely broken. Any suggestions?
Yeah,
that
sounds very normal that he's completely broken, right? I mean, how not? How could he not be? It's a good sign of being a normal person, and very hard, unthinkable. Using principles of the Kabbalah, how does one reach the higher state of mysticism? Is it meditation? Is through sound prayers such as mantras? Okay. You know, there are different, I don't think so much in terms of reaching levels. I think of in terms of what is my mission? What am I meant to do? If one wishes to reach a state, be in the present, especially if one is in the state of prayer, one can commune with the infinite in prayer through meditation. Meditation, I think, is going to be essential for that. Yes. And one is going to, through their service, or it could even be through study, one is going to be able to commune with something higher, transcendent. There are other Kabbalistic techniques that I'm not really an advocate, because I think a lot of these things are going to be routes to escape reality, whereas really what we're meant to do is to embrace reality and transform it. But yes, we definitely need a time to commune with God in a personal and personal way. And there's a way to do that that takes time and effort, and one usually is going to want to have a guide for that. Is our grief welcomed by God? You know what? That it depends. I'm not sure if you asked the other question. When you are having empathy for somebody else, that is always welcomed. Having empathy, or even showing empathy, a lower level, is welcomed by God, because you're taking care of another and showing your caring for another. That's always welcomed by God. Our own grief, God understands. God, the Talmud actually explains that. It's a very hard thing. I'm not going to be able to do it in under 2 minutes or 1 minute, but I'm just going to throw it out there to confound everyone. The Talmud actually states that when a human being down here suffers, God suffers, so to speak, even more. How do you like that? That's a crazy thought. As you say, so why does God do it? Well, it goes back to teacher number 2, right? That we are in this world for a particular reason, and crazy things happen, and we go forward. These are my beliefs. This is, I think there could be great comfort and solace in this. Doesn't answer all the questions, doesn't make everything okay. It's not meant to be.
Terrific. Well, thank you. Thank you. I really enjoyed this. And in addition to enjoying this, I learned something, and I took notes. So I just want you to know I'm taking notes so I can review them later, like the student that I am. And so I really appreciate you joining us this evening and sharing with us. And I hope that other people feel illuminated, because it was very interesting. So just a reminder, if you would like to purchase the book, it's and the link is there in the chat. And I will also say, or I would be remiss if I did not thank the generous donors who contribute to the JCC so that we can run programs like this one. Let me very quickly here just share very quickly. We do put on a lot of these programs. Most of them are free to the community, and we're able to do so thanks to the generosity of people who donate to us, and some of whom may be on this call this evening. So thank you very much. And if you are enjoying this program and others, and you feel so moved, please consider making a gift of any amount at marinjcc.org/donate, marinjcc.org/donate. Any and all amounts are deeply appreciated. We have other events coming up this month, and if you're not on our mailing list, please email me at jharris@marinjcc, and I will get you on our mailing list where we have our upcoming programs. We are launching a class in partnership with the Baltimore JCC that starts this Wednesday evening. It's called Not a Nice Girl, sorry, not a Nice Jewish Girl, Women in Israeli Cinema. And I think it's going to be really interesting. I took an Israeli cinema class in college, and I can only hope that things have improved since then. So I think this is going to be a really interesting class if this is something that appeals to you. So we've been recording this, and we will post it on our website at some point in the next few days. And thank you again, Rabbi Rice, for joining us and sharing your wisdom. And it's really, really appreciated in these times. And thank you all for everyone that joined us, and we'll see you next time. So thank you.